I remember days they used to laugh at me. Used to show them on my records talking casually. Used to say it was a passion on my path to be. Then they told me that I couldn't, so I had to be. Tell me what they really think about it now. Used to hate it, but I guarantee they're proud. Had to do it just to show them that I could, yeah. Now I finally think I took it where I should, yeah. Had a jokes on you and now you're on and laughing. I did a whole lot of winning. Look, it came from a passion. I see a whole lot of knowings I could see now in public. And that may think a lot of things, man. At least think something, now you the judge. And now tell me where you ended up. Yeah. Look, I bet it was a simple job. Yeah. Look, I went and took a different route. Yeah. Look, that's why my life is different now. Back in my feelings, look, when I wasn't so gifted and I was learning to do this, and all I heard were the critics, and I don't blame you for that shit. Look, I was way out the basis, but I just needed some talent so I could witness the greatness. Oh yeah, you ain't ever think this, no, no, no. Stop me while I started, homie, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now this shit settled, it's go better and better, but I'll always remember, yeah, yeah.
All right, welcome back to That One podcast. We're on the road in LA, rocking it out. We have Brittany here. She's written some books. She's an artist. She's just doing her thing, man. And I got to say, first of all, thank you for being here, Britt.
Yeah, of
Can
course.
I call you Britt? Is that cool?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
right,
I hope that you do call me Britt.
I have I'm Italian, so we all have nicknames and different things. I'll make a nickname for you later. But
okay.
But yeah, it's funny how we met. I talk about this a lot on the What Are You Made Of show about reaching out and networking with people and DMs, right? And I just authentically, genuinely reach out through the DMs. And I had to fight. I did this during the pandemic. I had to fight through all the spam that we all get, right? And so first thing I want to ask you is why did you answer a DM from a guy you don't even know? And he wasn't hitting on you or anything, but do you remember?
I do remember. For me, I just follow intuition. I'm very intuition led. So I can usually feel if something is right. And there's a lot of DMs that I ignore, right? For sure. But there was just something that was no, say yes. Even to coming here today, there was something that was yeah, do it. And I just don't overthink it.
That's awesome.
I either say, it's either a hell yes or a hell no.
Yeah.
And it was totally a hell yes.
Well,
for sure.
so many people are waiting for a license to live. And this gets into your story too, but they are waiting for someone else to give them permission or a license, I call it, right? You got to be a licensed mortgage professional, licensed realtor, licensed to drive a car. Our whole lives are all about having a license to do something. Yeah. And I love when people are I give the license to myself.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And, the thing is, too, is I cannot tell you how many times I actually hear when I get on those little 15-minute Zoom calls with people after reaching out to them on Instagram, how they say, I don't know why I answered you, but I felt like I should. And I think it really goes back to my intention when I started reaching out to people during the pandemic. I was like, I'm not going to stop talking to people. Yeah. I'm going to still connect with people. And I figured out a way to do it. And it's about helping people that I didn't have that help when I first started out on my journey to build my brand. Right. And so I'm excited about this. I'm excited that you're here. And so let's get into it. So first of all, writing books, has that always been a dream of yours, or did it just come out recently? Or?
No, it's so funny. So I was at dinner last night, and I was out with some creatives too who live in the area, and they're aspiring actors, and they're in the Hollywood scene. And so it was
Wait a minute. These aren't people you knew, right?
No,
these are total strangers.
Yes.
So before you get into the story of it, how did you connect with them? How
so one of the girls I actually followed online, her name is Whitney Yulin. She is a celebrity coach. That's what she does. And her content really drew me in because it was all about do you feel that you're made for greatness? And maybe hold a little shame around it because you're made for more. You know that there's something kind of special and unique about you. And it was kind of oh shoot, yeah, I do. And so she gave me permission to feel no, I am supposed to make a difference with my work. So shot in the dark, I sent her a DM and I said, hey, by the way, I'm going to be in the area. What are the odds that we could meet up? And she said, absolutely, let's do dinner. She invited her actress friend. We talked about screenwriting and art and acting and Hollywood. And so it was really just again, invigorating to be in the scene, in the creative energy. So I was there last night and that came up. Liz, what got you into writing? Do you remember? And yes, I was 7 years old. I vividly remember it was first grade, and it was this project that my first grade teacher gave us. It was a blank book, just blank, like clear white cover, open the inside, it's all blank. And she just like slid it across the desk and said, fill it. And it was like this electric feeling through my body where I was like, oh, this is my thing. This is my thing. And so it was like I could pour out all of me and put it somewhere to be seen. And at the end, like if you're on this spiritual journey, we talked about this, like what it all is, life, everything is just this like getting really comfortable with being seen for who you authentically are. And so writing has given me that vessel to share, like, this is me in here.
Yeah.
And I can't always communicate, and I'm working on this, right, like verbally to speak or to share. It's funny because I'm podcasting, but like in my personal life, like it's still an obstacle, but like writing has given me that opportunity to really pour myself. So that's when it started, and it was like, I was hooked, you know, I could like take everything from here and put it somewhere and then allow the world to see me.
So writing a book was actually, it kind of is like a cover, or it provides a buffer versus speaking. And somebody can read the book, but you have still some kind of safe separation from it.
For sure.
Right? So it kind of leads that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At, like on the subconscious level, the psyche, yes, I think there is a layer of like hiding behind being a writer instead of saying, right? Like even in my memoir, there's things I said in here that I haven't ever told anyone. Like relationships, like he doesn't even know how I feel, but I have not told him. But if he reads it, he'll find out. And so like, how funny is that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my book, the same thing. I had stuff in there that I felt about family relationships, same thing. And it caused some problems in my life, but it is what it is. I wanted to help people more. I thought that was more important.
Sure.
You know, the spiritual thing that you talked about when you started writing, I felt that same thing. There's a picture of me when I was about 4 years old, back of me facing the ocean with my pants down around my ankles, peeing in the ocean. I had that same experience. No, I'm just kidding with you. No, I'm just kidding with you. I'm just kidding with you. I had.
Wait a minute.
I'm trying to be funny, but no.
I won most gullible in high school, so like I will believe a story.
No. I had that feeling. Truthfully, my first podcast I went on, it was a virtual podcast, and I was being interviewed, and I didn't even know what podcasts were the first time I did one. Honestly, it's embarrassing after doing 1,100 now, but I had this feeling, the same thing, and I was being interviewed, and I'm like, this dude's interested in me. Like, why? Like, this is weird, but I like it. I like this feeling.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but did you have this feeling like, I want to bottle this feeling? If I could bottle this feeling and be able to tap into this, like, that's how I describe it.
Yeah, no, when you say it, yes. But like, you know, I think for everyone else who is like listening or whatever, I think what it is that flow feeling, whatever that flow state is. Like, yeah, if we could run on flow all day, every day, like, wow, right?
Yeah.
That's the magic. That's the sauce.
Yeah. All right. So I've watched your journey since we met.
Yeah.
On our first call, and you know, I'll throw some encouragement to you every so often because I want you to feel like, yeah, this is the right path. Not that you need a license for me, but I want to encourage you because I saw that you were coming out of a relationship and moving into being. You told me on the call, you're like, I'm switching things up, and you were very convicted in it. There was like no hesitancy, no insecurity. I don't know if there was, but it didn't come off that way. And it was just like, I'm doing this thing now, and people are going to just deal with it. It was kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
Is that how you felt?
No, for sure. Yeah. I just, you know, I'm all about, my whole big thing is like, just decide. Like when you make a decision, like just decide. And once you decide something and you stick with it, everything changes. So I just decided like, I'm going to show up as this person and everything will follow suit. Like it will work itself out because I made the choice. I made the decision to switch it up.
Yeah. All right. So take us through it. Like, what was your life like when you, like, I guess first had kids?
Okay.
And then becoming a mother, and I guess you were a wife at the time. And did you feel like, I'm not going to speak for you. What was that like? And then what made you decide to switch things up, so to speak?
Oh, to get a divorce?
That, and then to go out and then become who you are now being.
Yeah. Well, I did. I also told the story last night was when I was in my marriage, it was like I could only see so far. And at the time, my dreams were much smaller, but I didn't realize then. Like I just saw like a small little beach house, like just low key, you know, and, you know, my books to be #1 bestsellers. But as soon as I left the marriage, it was like a rock was moved, and all of a sudden, glowing in the distance was Hollywood. And I had never seen that before until I got the divorce. This was not like a forever thing that I always knew I would be a writer, right? Like I knew that was my thing, that was my special thing. But I never saw my books making it to Hollywood until I left that person. So yeah, I do believe that relationships can either make or break you and either anchor you into a dream or, you know, steer you in the wrong direction ultimately.
Yeah, and so I'm a big guy on like 100% responsibility, and we have to be the ones that take responsibility for things, right? And so when you're in that relationship, did you feel like you were like boxed in and you know, your dreams were like, you'd bring something up and then you'd be invalidated?
Yeah. Were you there? Were you like a fly
No,
on the
but
wall?
I study human behavior,
No,
so I
yeah,
kind of know.
Literally, yeah, that's literally it. Was I didn't have his support. I had these big dreams always, and he just maybe was intimidated by them. If I'm being honest, I don't think an ambitious woman can be triggering for some men. And I think in that case it was. He just saw that as a threat. Like, wow, if I let her get too big, she might leave. Well, the catch-22 is she left anyway, and all she really needed was your support.
Wow, yeah.
You know, in your partnership. And so, yeah, ultimately it wasn't healthy for me, and I wasn't growing.
Yeah, you know, me as a guy, I've been married 21 years now, and there was a time prior to us getting married. Shout out to my beautiful wife, Jennifer. By the way, like, having a supportive spouse is like, I told her the other day, I called her because I was on the boardwalk, and I'm like, I just want to thank you for all the support you've given me. Like, when I was going through tough times, you just said, dude, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that little thing. But I was like that. I was like what you experienced early on because I wasn't working on myself.
Yeah.
And I felt like that. Like if she
Yeah.
would do something else, oh, she might find somebody better. She might find something better. And I just wasn't in a good place. And it didn't make me a bad guy, just like it doesn't make him a bad guy. It's just, I wasn't self-aware. I wasn't working on myself. And once I started doing that, I was able to give her what I felt and support and encourage her and want to see her rise.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think there's a lot to be said there. So, all right. So then when we talked that one time, like, when did it come to you where you were like, you saw that vision and you were like, oh, I'm switching it up. And then you started pushing stuff on social media, being more you.
Yeah.
You know, more free, more vulnerable, but also more artistic.
Yeah. So the art switch was definitely, it came with like hesitancy with my friends. They're like, I don't know, you're so likable and you're so relatable on your Instagram. But at the time I was I told you I was making posts for other people. And I saw this, this clip on Instagram Reels, and it was like, no, art is for you. Creating is for you first. And so I just decided, like, no, I'm not creating for anybody else anymore. Like, the art is for me, but in that, it's more authentic and people can feel that more. So I decided I don't care about likes and views. I don't care I don't want to just be a people pleaser, and that energy of like, I'm going to make this because you want me to. And it's likable or shareable, or I know how to go viral. Like, not to be cocky, but like, I've done it, right? I know how to do it. But a lot of it has been people pleasing energy for me, and that doesn't feel good. It's like, yeah, I went viral for this post, but like, am I really proud of it? Did it really like do something for me?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and the funny thing is when you do this, you make this switch, you start to attract the right people that you want to be around.
Yes.
And more importantly, you repel the wrong people.
Well, I've lost followers.
Yeah.
I've lost like 2,000 followers since I made the switch, and then there's something inside of me that's like, oh shit, like, did I do the wrong thing because all of a sudden I'm not likable? But I'm like, no, I just lost the people that weren't for me.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is that the biggest thing that'll hold you back is not just one person in a relationship, but it's like a lot of the wrong people. And when people leave, a lot of times we take it personal. But it's okay. Like, we got to let people go.
Yeah.
And I hate the fact that I have some like great friends and acquaintances and things that aren't in my life right now. And sometimes I think about it and it hurts, right? But then I think about, like, I might have been holding them back too. It's not just about followers and strangers.
Yeah.
It's the people that are, you know, have a piece of your heart, right?
That's accountability.
Yeah. And so, yeah, maybe you're holding them back too, and maybe you're holding him back. Who knows?
Yeah. That's something that I recently realized with my marriage was like, you know, I could have just remained in the victim mindset and like, oh, he did this to me and he wasn't this and he wasn't that and therefore this. It's like I could follow that equation, or I could just say it just didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
And
both
so,
of us.
and so, what are some of the things that you've identified doing some reflection or self-work that when you realized that you were like, oh, this is weird, or this is quirky, or this is like, I don't know if I want to share this, but then, you did anyway. But what are some of those things that you identified?
Like publicly?
Like about yourself? No, like about what you did about yourself. You found out about yourself.
Oh,
but then you leaned into it, and then you were okay to expose it to people. And
I don't, it's funny. I feel like one day you just kind of wake up and you just decide. Like for me, that's just how I operate. I'm very intuitive. Like I can feel things. So if I just like wake up, it's like I woke up one day and I knew. And same with my divorce. I literally woke up. It was the day before I had like an inkling I was going to do it. But then the next morning I woke up and I was like, turned and looked and I was like, I want a divorce. And it just hit me. And so like things will just like hit me and then I'll make a decision and I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm gunning it. I'm going all for it. And I'm really stubborn in that way, where not in like a bad way, but if I know what's good for me and I can feel it intuitively that I made the right choice, I'm going to follow that.
Yeah. And what were some of the things, though, that after that you identified, like, about yourself, though, like, that you really highlight now?
So a couple months ago, I actually hired a hypnotherapist, and that was, like, my first time with hypnotherapy. So I'm realizing that who I am right now is all ran on subconscious programming, right? So, like, all of these old things that I learned in my childhood, like, that's what I'm operating on. And so it wasn't until I'm a daily meditator. I meditate every single day, and I've done this religiously for the last year. So yeah, I was meditating, and then someone told me about the work of Neville Goddard. If you've heard of Neville Goddard.
I just brought that up to somebody today.
Yeah. Changed my life. That's actually why I'm here. I was telling the story. Like, I had this visualization.
That's crazy.
And it was this Hollywood scene, and that's why I'm here. Like, I visualized it, and it was like quick. Yeah. So changing my subconscious is this hypnotherapist brought me.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
So Neville Goddard.
Neville Goddard.
Did you grow up in a Christian home?
I did.
And you read the Bible before?
I did.
And then did you go back to the Bible after reading Goddard's work, Neville's work? And then
yeah, this came up last night. So the girls that I were with were ex-Mormon, okay? Mm-hmm. And so hardcore religious. And I grew up Southern Baptist. So like hardcore religious. It's really about like marrying the two of like spirituality and religion. So like how I put it is I don't take everything, I use everything with a grain of salt. I have discernment. I keep what resonates and I pitch what doesn't. So with Neville Goddard, a lot of it does resonate, right? Like Christ consciousness and, us being God. But at the same time, it's like, is Jesus my homeboy? Yeah. Right? So like, it's hard to marry the two. And I think that is just everyone's unique journey. Yeah. Blending the two, to be honest.
Yeah.
Your spirituality is yours.
It's your relationship.
It's your relationship with God. So like, if you want to be 80-20, 80% believing in spirituality and Neville Goddard practices and 20% Jesus is my homeboy, like, cool. Or flip it, right? So like, that's kind of what we decided last night. Like, yeah, okay. Everyone's kind of on their own journey with that. And it's okay.
Well, speaking of that, like, we are God, right? Some people that, especially that are in the Christian church, Southern Baptists especially, they'll get offended by that.
Oh, for sure.
And the thing is in the Bible, it talks about that we should become Christ-like. And Christ is God.
Yeah.
So we're following what the Bible says when we talk about that. It's not that we think we are like that level.
We are Christ consciousness, right?
Yeah.
We are the conscious creators of the reality, which is only an experience that God can give us. So in that way, like, we are God.
Yeah. And then, so how did we get on that topic? Because there was a question I asked you and you said, you started reading that.
It was the hypnotherapist.
Yeah. Like, take us to that story.
Yeah. So a couple months ago, I decided to do hypnotherapy because one of the blocks, ironically enough, is like a fear of being seen, which is funny because like I show up on social media. I have this loud, wild, flamboyant personality, but deep down, the reason I wasn't growing, I knew, was because I had a fear of being seen. And so I was with this hypnotherapist and we were doing this session. It was so expensive, but like so worth it. And so they get down in there. In the very first memory, he took me to was a birthday I had in my childhood where I didn't actually have a birthday at all. And it, like, I hadn't thought about that.
Wait a minute.
So I grew up like super poor,
Right.
and they couldn't afford to give me a birthday party.
Gotcha.
And it was like, that was the moment where I realized like where the fear of being seen came from, because I wasn't seen on my birthday that year. And it was, we couldn't afford it. Brittany's here. Yeah. But like, couldn't afford to like see her. And so that stuck in my subconscious. I think I was like 4 years old. And my mom's friends brought like cupcakes and like a little like Pocahontas doll because they like felt so bad that my parents couldn't give me a birthday. But that was so, deeply traumatic to my subconscious program, is like, well, I don't deserve to be seen. I don't deserve to be celebrated. And so doing that work, it's like, oh, I have to remove that, because that's not true. I do deserve to be seen. I do deserve to be celebrated. And I have a calling in my life that I know is supposed to be celebrated. So doing that deep work to remove that was really important.
Yeah, it can go the other way too. Like, people seek attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But they could have the same experience, but they go a different route.
Yeah.
And they want attention, so they act out, they misbehave.
Yes. I just had this conversation last night.
Sleep around. Like, they do all kinds of weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
They're whatever. What's the word I was looking for? It's like when they...
Narcissist?
Is it voyeur? No. No, narcissist. It could be that too. I don't know. No, but it's like something when they want to be on... I don't know. I can't think of the word right now. Anyway, so...
Illusions of grandeur? No, I don't know.
That's not, it'll come to me. We'll be talking about something else 15 minutes from now, and I'll be like, I'll say the word.
Yep.
So just be ready. So what was it like being hypnotized? Like, do you know that you're, like, what's that like? I've never been hypnotized before.
No, I love it. Honestly, I was just crying like rivers during the hypnosis.
But do you know you're under?
You do, but you're conscious, but you're not. So like, you are asleep. You're in that like sleepy state. But you can obviously follow his prompts. Like, you're not totally knocked out, but you're in that deep, relaxed state where like it is piercing through your subconscious. Like, it did make a difference, because after that, like, my book hit the #1 bestsellers list. I'm having opportunities like this of like being seen and networking with people and growing in my own way. And it does work. And just like that worthiness of like, no, I I deserve that.
So while you're under, you go through this scene and you're like, wow. And then what happens? Like, you get this cognition and this understanding.
Yes.
And then that way, now you understand it. Now you don't let it affect you. Is that how it works?
It is very rapid. It's very rapid, because when you come to and you wake up and you literally like snaps your fingers and you just have this moment of like, oh, it's almost like akin to when people undergo like psychedelics, like, like plant medicine, and they have that like come to Jesus. It's like, I had that awareness so I had my come to Jesus going back, piercing through the subconscious layer and being like, this is that exact moment in time.
Gotcha.
Very visceral too. And it was not something it wasn't like a memory that I was like hung up on, like, oh man, remember that time I didn't have a birthday? It's like, no, that was what my subconscious told me. It was like, yeah, because you didn't have a birthday. That's why.
Jeez.
Right?
Kind of makes me wonder what I don't remember.
Yeah.
I've had people on my show before, and they told me about things that came to them later on, but they had no idea. And they were maybe reading a book, and then the memory came, and they didn't know if it was real or not. Were you sure it was real?
Oh, 100. Okay. Yeah, I vividly remember. I was like 4 or 5. So like, I was during the stages of life where like you're starting to develop memories. Yeah. And also they say like your subconscious programming is 0 to 7 years old.
Yeah.
So that's the age of like, you really lock in then. Like what happens then is what shapes the rest of your life. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, it really is. And
when you think about it, it's like,
I mean, what sticks out in my mind is that I had a step parent. I'll just leave it at that. And they would say, "You're pathetic." And I didn't even know what that meant. I'm like 8 or 10 years old. I don't even remember what that. I didn't know the definition of that word. But the way it was said and the visceral that it was said by, that's still like, I think that sticks with me.
Oh, for sure. Unfortunately.
And then when I go do things, sometimes it's like, am I pathetic? Is this like, I'll do a video. It's like, is that pathetic? And I think I know what it means now, but it's more what was behind it.
Yeah.
And so that could affect, and I lean into it anyway. Like I have this thing like lean into it, do it anyway.
Yeah.
And and then when you are online, social media, pushing your videos out, you write your book, you get people that a lot of times we don't even know. and they're smart asses or they say stuff, and then that can trigger some of those things too, right?
Totally.
Yeah. How do you fight against that or handle it?
You know, I have just reached a point where I just don't care. I do not care what anybody thinks about me. At the end of the day, like, I'm my own biggest critic, and I put myself through the ringer. I'm hard enough on myself that I don't really need anybody else's attention. You know, I don't know what it is. I was reflecting on this the other day when I was in the car. I was like, where did this come from? This, like, I genuinely do not care. And I think it comes from, I left the house at 17 years old, and I had to be on my own. And so I think when you are out of your parents' like reins, like, I'm the first to graduate college, like, I'm the first to kind of like pave my way. So I didn't have anybody to look at me and be like, oh, like, you're doing it wrong. Like, anything I did was an accomplishment from where I came from. Gotcha. So I think from that perspective, it was like, I'm still doing better than, you know, most people.
So then you're thinking to yourself, how far can I take this thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like, oh, I just did that. Now, okay, what's next?
It's been a constant climb of like, okay, now I know what I'm made of.
And then, and it's funny because you haven't been on that show, but you know my show's called What Are You Made Of, the other show? What Are You Made Of? You have to come on that one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, the thing is that I noticed on your journey how you talk about like, oh, this thing's happening now. It's amazing. You just can't believe like this journey. It's like opening up and it keeps getting better and better and better.
It does.
Right? Yeah. I like that.
It does.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So your book
yes.
and your writing, I want to ask you about how do you avoid being like anyone else and being that one? Like in your writing, whether it's turned into a screenplay and a film, your art, do you not watch other people to avoid being like anyone else? Or do you watch other people? Because I've heard both ways from creators, right? Some don't want to watch other people. Like Jelly Roll talks about, he doesn't really, I think it was Jelly Roll that said he didn't want to listen to anybody else because he thought it would affect his music and his creativity because he didn't want to be like anybody else.
Yeah.
But others I've heard, they get inspiration from others. How do you approach that?
It definitely depends on what we're talking about. I think in my earlier years, I drew a lot of inspiration from other writers, and I still do. But I think I'm so drawn to being unique, right? Like I want to stand out. Like, and I think that's what makes an artist really great is they inherently don't want to be like anyone else.
Yep.
And so it's just a natural thing, a natural pull towards doing something different. Like the romance novel that I wrote, I'm so tired of airy-fairy, pink romance, like fluffy, everything. You know, it's so mainstream, and I'm just tired of mainstream. And so I was like, no, I'm going to write a dark romance. I'm going to like put some grief and some real stuff in there. I want it to be different. I want it to be real. And so I actually crafted like my own writing style, and it's different. So, but yeah, I think that's what makes art good art is when you can lean into just being you. So yeah, I think I definitely do allow myself to be inspired by other artists, but I don't let it pull me one way or the other. I really just anchor into my own like authenticity and know like this is the way that I want to do it. And it's very intuitively led.
Yeah.
You know, I follow that guidance inside that's like, this is the way. Even if I'm losing followers right now, or even if people don't like it right now, I like it. Yeah. You know?
So the dark romance, like what is it that you want the reader to feel or get when they're reading that?
Yeah. So my book, On His Way Back to Me, is loosely tied to losing my first love. He passed away in 2019. It was some of the deepest, most taboo grief I've ever gone through. And so people don't really feel bad for you when you lose like an ex. Like they're just like, they're not going to send you flowers. No one really cared about, I had to actually hide my grief. And so in my hidden grief, I grieved and I made art. And what I want people to take from the dark romance, right, is that like, there is still love, even though I lost. You know, there's still, that still deserves to be celebrated, even though he's not here anymore. Actually wear his ashes on my neck every day. So he's with me right now. But, you know, it is taboo. And I want to write it, but taboo is real. And so the core of like my inspiration, I always say this too, it's like, I'm more inspired by my mailman than Taylor Swift. Like, I like the realness of life, the rawness of life. And I think a lot of romance is so, it's not tied in reality, which can also maybe be dangerous and toxic to like dating culture or in marriage and relationships when you're looking at this idealized view of relationships, this quote unquote romanticized view and perspective of it. I want to show the reality of it. But in that, a lot of my readers will say, like, I usually read like fantasy romance, but like reading your romance made me realize like there is still real romance out there in the real world. Like it's really tied into the realism of life. And so that is where I draw my inspiration.
So being inspired by the mailman.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was walking in Beverly Hills today, and I was passing trash men. I was passing construction workers. And some of the guys were like, one guy was in a trash truck in the passenger seat and he was like leaned back sleeping. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I didn't used to do this, but I didn't really observe much before. But now I observe everything.
Yes,
and
I'm
I was
such
observing,
an observer.
and I was thinking to myself, like, I wonder what this guy's life is like, and if he didn't get much sleep last night, and he's working, and does he really like what he's doing? Does he feel trapped? All these thoughts went through my head.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, and I'm inspired by that. Thinking about like, man, I wish I could shake him and just get him out if he feels trapped. But but you can't help everyone. But it's just funny the observation that I was having walking, and I do that on the boardwalk in Ocean City, Maryland. When I'm walking in the mornings, I watch the people that come for their vacation and the interactions that they have with their families, and I remember back when I had mine, vacations as a kid, and then some of the kids are like whiny and crying because they're sleepy. Like it's just it's funny how you can observe like just everyday people and get really inspiration from them.
Yeah, that's what I want to pull in my art. I think there are enough idolized versions of false realities that I think it's time to. I think really that's what Hollywood needs is some real life stuff. I think a lot of art, the ball is being dropped because we're out of touch with reality. Yeah. And so that's kind of my mission is to like, that's the impact I want to make.
So speaking of Hollywood.
Yeah.
When you're watching stuff now, what really grabs you? Like, what are you gravitating towards now? Like on Netflix or whatever?
So what's funny is like, since I've become a creator and I've leaned heavily into my creativity, I don't consume as much.
Okay.
So when I'm like deeply in writing, I'm not reading as much. When I'm podcasting, now that I'm a podcaster, I don't necessarily listen to other shows. And now that I'm, working for, the goals to have my books be adapted to film, I'm not really watching film.
Interesting.
So it's like the closer I get to the thing that I want, I actually completely and entirely remove myself and have this like new identity towards it. Yeah. And I don't even mean to do it, but that's just what happens. So I haven't listened to a podcast since I became a podcaster. Now I've definitely read books since I've been an author. Yeah, that's a little different. But when I'm in writing mode.
But podcasting, you're talking about having your own show and interviewing people?
Right, I'll do that.
I thought about this myself. Like I was interviewing a lot of people and I'm like, why don't I listen to more podcasts? But I listen to them every day. I do 15 a week.
That's the thing.
Like, but it's not just creating. I'm listening to a podcast because I'm paying attention to the person talking all the time. And I don't feel like doing that when I'm off. Like, you know what I mean? No. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so it's just something funny. Like the more that I create, the less I consume.
So your book, the memoir book, how did your family react to that and your ex-husband react to that and the stuff that you shared that you might not even shared with them before?
What's funny is they haven't reacted because they haven't read it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why? They don't want to? Or
I think part of it, but like, I think a lot of authors can relate to this. Like a lot of people just don't read. And so like you can actually tell the most like outlandish story in a book and like about people that and a lot of like fiction authors like pull from their real life because they know like no one's gonna know you said that about them.
Yeah,
they're not gonna know that that's technically inspired by them, so they haven't read it.
Did you ask permission or give them a heads up before releasing the book?
So really it's not a lot about my family life. It's a lot about my love life, like following divorce. And so there are men in there that I've like dated and they are very aware that they're in it and they have read it. So their reactions are, I don't know, I'll have to get them on a show and get their reaction.
That'd be a good show.
It would be a really good show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm in a book of anybody's.
Yeah, there's one guy specifically. He knows. He was like, so like, how much of it am I in? I was like, well, like flip through it. He's like, okay, so like my name's on like almost every page. It's like, yeah, your name's on almost every page. He has not confirmed or denied if he's read the entire book yet, but he's very aware He knows the story. He's like, I feel like I don't have to read it because I'm in it. But I'm like, well, you should see how I feel, because of course I won't tell you. You'll have to read about it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. So as time's winding down here, we're up against the clock. But what is the vision from here? Like, you want them to be turned into film and all that, but like, paint the picture for us.
Yeah.
What you see.
Yeah. Oh gosh, this is bold, but I think it's time for, like I said, Hollywood to have a new author who is, there's Colleen Hoover right now. And my vision is to have her step aside and let's have some real art with like deeply impactful themes, some romance that is unconventional, that has real themes. Like, grief is real, like it's deep and people want to be seen in that. And so through my art, I want people to feel seen. And I think she did a good job with the last book she wrote. It Ends With Us. It's about abuse. But it was executed poorly, and there's obviously a lot of backlash if you've been following. And so I just think like it's time for change, and I'm like ready to deliver that. And so want to, with my work, I want to make an impact. I want to make a difference. That's the goal. And the book that I'm writing now, I feel like in my soul is it. Like, I'm very confident and I love the books that I've written, but it's like each one just kind of gets better and better. Mm-hmm. And with the goal, like each one, I'm like, how can I make an even bigger impact? And so a lot of artists sell the things that they don't think were as good as the other things. Yeah. And the things they think were great aren't. Tank, yeah. So you never know, I guess, really. But where can people get your books? Where do you want to send people? Yeah. Of course, Amazon, anywhere books are sold online. And then you can find me on Instagram or TikTok. I'm usually talking about my art or my life or making you laugh. So awesome. Yeah, making me laugh. Making you laugh. You know what? Like, I love supporting people that I met, and I'll continue to do that. And I'm on social media intentionally to encourage and to meet new people. And I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. I'm a fan, and you are that one, Brittany. Thank you. So are you. I appreciate you. Thank you. That's a wrap. Great job. That was fun. Great job. Awesome job. Yes. Thanks for coming out. Thanks. Okay, one more thing. The thing that makes me that one is I lean into authenticity. I lean into my awkwardness, my weirdness, and I think when you can lean into your weirdness, that's your secret sauce. So that's what I'm all about.